Hello, everyone. This is Red Dot Diva for today's live with Red Dot Diva. Sorry for the interruption just now. It has been happening for quite a while that StreamYard has problems with Meta, Facebook's connection, and I had to reset the broadcast for everyone. So anyway, welcome for today's session. I'm pretty excited, and I think my guest has been uh, preparing for today's event, and we are both kind of like eager to get this going, hoping that people will come and join us for this live stream so that we can get the discussion going as well. For those who are not familiar with me, I'm Red Dot Diva. I'm a lifestyle and pop culture blogger based in Singapore, and I've been doing this for about 13 years. And the live stream, a live with Red Dot Diva, started during COVID, as most creative endeavors was happening during the time when we are all stuck at home and we couldn't meet each other. But I was watching a lot of YouTube videos at that time as well, and reading a lot of articles, and I was particularly peeved that most of the time when they were talking about art and like comic books creators and interviews, they were all based in the US or the UK, and if they were Asian based, people know about manga or anime, so they are either Japanese, Korean, or from even Taiwan, but there was hardly any social media interviews or videos or podcasts featuring creatives in our region, which is Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and our neighboring countries. So I decided to start Live with Red Diva featuring the beautiful and wonderful talents that we have that people might not be familiar with. And this is how it has continued since 2020. And this is 2023 now. And I hope to do this on a semi-regular basis. So I'm very excited to be able to have my guests on board today. She's a multi-disciplinary artist, Quinatasya, and we call her Quin for short. And I'm going to bring her on screen so that she can introduce herself, and we'll get on for today's topic, which is very interesting. Mind matters, finding meaning through art and science. Is it very separate? Is arts and science so totally different and in opposite polar regions from each other, or is there something very connective between these two disciplines? And I'm going to bring Quin on board right now. Hello, Quin. How are you?
Hello, Tina. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Thank you for having me here. And also, thank you for creating this platform for
Yeah.
artists and creatives like myself.
Yes.
Um, okay, so I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible. I'm Quin. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I've been creating art for as long as I can remember. I make things out of nothing for a living and for fun. And I enjoy using a variety of mediums from traditional to digital. For traditional, I like using Chinese ink. That's one of my favorite mediums,
Oh, really?
graphite, acrylic paint. For digital, it's mostly on the iPad because of its mobility, Procreate on iPad. And I also
Mm-hmm.
use video editing softwares like Adobe Premiere and After Effects. And sometimes I like to combine these two traditional and digital mediums to create detailed, realistic renderings of human figures, neuroanatomical structures, and nature. And I'm very
Yeah.
interested in synthesizing art and science together through different modes of storytelling, like film, painting, and comics. And a brief fun fact about me would be my professional background is in media. So I've been a multimedia producer for
Mm.
over 15 years, filming, editing, producing content for broadcast and digital media. And I've also worked collaboratively on projects for brands such as Ferrari and Cartier. And I've done illustration work for local and international
Mm.
publishers, also contributed to a children's book before. And last but not least, I've also done character design for a kids' game show
Wow.
called Number Squad for Octo. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
would consider myself a multi-passionate creative who really enjoys to engage with different mediums and different modes of storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have your artwork behind that you passed to me so graciously during
Yeah.
last year's Singapore Comic
Comic
Con.
Con, yes.
um, and also, like, maybe you could share, how your art journey so far. uh,
Mm.
connects to that interest in neuroscience, because what captured my
Mm.
attention, right, for your art, uh,
Yeah.
when I was looking through the list of exhibitors last year for Singapore Comic Con, and I noticed your Instagram page, and then there was all this art concerning, like, the exposure of characters' brains.
Yeah.
And a bit of it was my interest in the macabre, in the macabre and the dark side. But
Oh,
yeah, I like
okay.
gory, not too gory. I mean, like, kind of gory, dark things, intrigue me. So it was kind of like, oh,
Mm.
very interesting, popular Star Trek character, but brain exposed, and that was how I contacted you for the interview,
Oh.
right? And here we are. We're trying to delve a bit deeper into your
Mm.
interest in neuroscience, and how that developed during your art journey.
Okay. I find it so heartening that you were attracted, that my work intrigued you. Thank you so much for, yeah, for sharing that. Um, my interest in neuroscience actually started from a book that I borrowed from my late dad. All the way in 2005.
Mm,
I was 18 years old at that point of time, and I was studying fine arts at LaSalle College of the Arts. And
mm.
in 2005, I picked up that book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm sure a lot of people have
No.
read it or heard
Yeah.
about it. um, it's the book draws on concepts from psychology and behavioral
Mm.
sciences, and Malcolm Gladwell also included research by Paul Ekman, who's a psychologist, who introduced the idea of micro expressions, which is our fleeting look that provides insights into what is going on inside our minds.
Ah.
So as a young fine art student, I was that really blew my mind. I was like, wow. And then it sparked more questions. I was like, this could help me with my portrait paintings, because I was painting a lot of
Yeah.
portraits,
Yeah.
and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
hundreds by that time. I was 18, and I was like, if we could understand the human face, the human emotions, and the human brain, that could help me understand my subjects better. It could probably help me
Mm.
paint human figures better.
Yeah.
And then so back then in 2005, I made a pact with myself, to go deeper into this and to study
Mm.
behavioral sciences in the future when I could afford to.
Mm.
And I did just that in 2015, exactly 10 years after being introduced to these concepts from that book. I was 7 years into my career. I decided to further my studies in behavioral sciences just to feed that curiosity. And at that point in time, I was using art a lot, to improve my scientific literacy and to provide concrete visuals or for abstract concepts to make them more meaningful and memorable. Example, to relate the concepts to my favorite comic book characters like Batman, and just to crystallize my knowledge and to maximize the retention of the information that I was studying, because it was all quite yeah, it was quite abstract for me, so I needed to make it more solid for myself. And what better way than to relate it to my favorite characters. um
Yeah. And
yeah,
you were saying that you were intrigued when you read the book, and then after that you wanted to improve your portrait, right? As to them,
yeah,
how okay, let's say like right now something's happening to my brain, and therefore I'm smiling or something like this, and your eye expression changes and all that. Um, what did you particularly notice when you found that connection and you actually started to draw? Was there something that you went? Was there like an aha moment when you actually put that
yeah,
into practice?
yeah. You do understand, because Paul Ekman, he's so obsessed. He's considered a face expert, so he would electrocute parts of his face just to
Oh
see the
my.
different types of muscles that are activated when you're emoting a certain emotion. So then finding out how, the expressions now on our face that appears involuntarily, um, it helped me focus, or rather like look at candid photos of my yeah, it kind of drew me to more candid like depictions of humans, so I started to take photos of my friends and study their faces. And I went through that obsession for a bit. And then I realized, let's go deeper, let's study the brain. So that's why um yeah, so that's how that shift started, and I started to draw people's yeah, I started to include neuroanatomical
Mm, mm, mm,
structures.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Which is like, this is, this is a very
Yeah.
interesting drawing as well on the brain. I think out of so many parts, right, of our body, the brain is still like a mystery. I think we hardly
Oh, it
know very
is.
much about our brain. um,
Yeah.
and how
But the
how do we even
amazing, yeah.
connect to emotions, right, based on our brain, even though we know it's signals, but there's so many things going on inside there.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, it's there's still a lot of mystery, but neuroimaging studies, like there's now with technological advancement, we're able to peer and take a peek into our mind, and we're uncovering more and
Mm,
more,
mm,
yeah, knowledge about this.
mm. What is the latest interesting knowledge that has been picked up, as you're saying that
Oh
technology has
wow. Um,
improved so since you
yeah.
first studied, right? So like, I'm sure you
Yes.
have been keeping up on some of these interesting
Yes.
technological advances that come out. So what has
Yes.
been the latest, most
Yes.
interesting thing that has
Oh, you can see I'm very excited and I can't even hold it in. I subscribe daily to neuroscience news, and the latest one, which was released in August 24th, so it's two
mm,
days ago. There's been research in VR, the usage of VR
mm.
to understand autism better, because autism is a
Oh,
very
mm.
difficult
Yeah, yeah.
disorder to study and to treat,
Mm,
right? So they're
yeah.
using currently at, I think, at Kobe University, the scientists there are using VR to understand the neural basis of autism. Yeah, I think it's still developing, but just the fact that we're using technology like VR to understand the brain deeper, and
Interesting.
for the purpose of you know um, developing more interventions and to help people struggling with a host of different conditions.
Interesting. So how do they construct this VR and experiment to understand the brain though? Like the sample guinea pig is on, like, looking at VR, and then they kind of
Yeah.
image the brain on how it reacts. Is
So
that
they look
somehow?
at currently, so neuroscience usually use a lot of like rat yeah, like lab rat tests.
Yeah.
So they're using mouse model currently to study their social interactions, and to
Hmm.
find out, yeah, the
Interesting.
activities. So because social skills is very much
Yes.
tied to autism, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
they're
mm.
studying and creating models, I think, to help them understand, yeah, just interactions between the species, right? So I think this has interesting implications for humans, because I think, yeah, later on, I think, yeah, it's probably going to be translated to human studies as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And uh, that comes to the point about our discussion today, which is mainly
Yeah.
how this particular field of science, right, is connected to how our brain um, looks at things around us, especially artistic, creative things, paintings or
Yeah.
movies, or the toys that we buy that we like. And
Yeah.
uh, I I have to share this. I was I was at the recent uh, an art fest in indie art fest,
Mm,
illustration art fest, actually it was called. It hasn't
yeah.
been going on for the last 2 years because of COVID, 2 or 3 years, and it finally happened as a physical event, and was quite excited to just get into a festival again and look at all the artists booth. So when I was walking past and looking at all the booths, and this couple, like a young dating couple, okay, and it's quite usual the case that the lady is more interested in all these visual things, like the
Mm,
stickers and the cute chibi art and all that, and a lot of
mm,
the call it art prints and all that. And so she was dragging the boyfriend to this illustration art fest and couldn't help but overhear because the guy was saying like, I'm a science student. This is a bit too much art for me.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, hello,
Mm.
science student. Do you not know that actually in science there's a lot of art as well? Like the
Yeah.
Fibonacci sequence, right? Is in almost everything that you see in the flowers,
Yeah.
in the construction of
Yeah.
a, a shell, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
Mm.
you can't divorce. Personally, to me, I mean, if the people listening out there has opposing opinion, please post. To me,
Yes.
I am also was a semi science student, um, but I feel that there is always beauty in science. So if there is
Yes.
beauty in science, that means there is art in science, and therefore you
Yes.
cannot really divorce the two as very separate disciplines that you can't see one or the other. You know, I think that
Yeah.
is a bit too black and white.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
I'm not sure what has your experience been. That was my latest, most recent encounter.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I think this is quite a common view as well. I mean, like you, I've always seen art and science as united in our quest to understand the universe. And we're just using different tools and different methods,
Yeah.
right? But there are still folks out there who view art and science as separate. And some people see scientists as not creative and artists as not
Yeah.
analytical. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been accused before of being more right brained or left brained before. Have
Yeah,
you?
because they assume that because I'm an accountant, I can only see things in black or white.
Yeah. And that's far from the truth. And likewise, I was told by someone before that I'm illiterate just because I study fine arts
What?
and work in the
What?
creative industry. Yeah, there was
That's
this
such an insult.
misconception. Yeah, but
That's an
thankfully the
unkind
right
insult.
brain, yeah, I took it pretty okay because I was like, oh, that's actually an interesting thing to say. I mean, it says more about the person than
I
us,
know,
right?
but to use that
Um,
word is a bit weird, lah.
illiterate, right? Yeah. um yeah, I mean, she has her reasons for saying it, and it's okay. And I think thankfully the right brain and left brain theory has been debunked, and we now know that the two
Yeah.
sides of our
Yeah.
hemispheres are always communicating to perform various tasks, right?
Yeah.
But what happens when we accept these beliefs and misconceptions about arts
Mm,
and sciences to be
yeah.
separate? I think it impedes and it stymies support for both arts and sciences. And why not do both? Like, we can be
Yeah. I
logical and
agree.
creative at the same
Correct.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
think these people who believe these notions I think have forgotten very important and even popular people, enduring personalities to this day, who are both like they didn't separate themselves as being artistic nor just scientific. People like
Yeah.
Da Vinci.
Da
Hello,
Vinci.
you
Yeah.
all have seen, his works and his, you know,
Yeah.
even the face of Leonardo da Vinci, and he's a
Yeah.
great artist as well as coming out with all these scientific
Mm.
ideas. So
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, why not do both, right? And that's
Yeah.
why it intrigues me as to what really is the connection then when you study the neuroscience, right? What is the actual
Mm.
connection between these? Actually, I think, right, when we talk about the art and the science, is a human separation.
Mm.
It's a
Human
human
separation.
separation.
Can you go deeper into that?
Last time we call it this is art, and we perceive the notion art only
Uh,
means this, right? And science only
mhm.
means this. But it may not be
Yeah. Yeah.
entirely the way it should be. I
Yeah,
think.
and I've noticed that arts and sciences ask the same things, ask the same questions throughout history,
Oh,
right?
really?
Like, what is love? What is beauty? What is life?
Mm,
And in science, we use like EEG, we use heart rate monitoring, like all these biological tools to
mm,
understand like our brain when we're experiencing love,
mm,
our heart rate when we're
mm,
experiencing love. And
mm.
in through art we explore that in different ways. We explore that through film. And I think, yeah, and also both arts and sciences require so much creativity and rigor. Like we're testing hypotheses using different tools and methods. And
Mm,
I feel like science can communicate issues that art can help to explore visually, and art can inspire and stimulate further investigation in science and vice versa. So there is
yeah,
always this, it's a symbiotic relationship. And I think it's very important for artists and scientists to work together effectively to create new, mutually relevant knowledge.
yeah, yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
I think humans are wired to be visual now, sadly speaking. I mean, we are visual creatures. Uh,
Yeah.
we form even our judgments, right, based on visual cues mainly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even I think recently people have, even in the business world, because I'm an accountant. So in the business world, right, I think recently people have also been trying to focus that yes, we have to make use of this human behavior in order to understand data. And
Yes.
the hot
Yeah.
thing now in the business world is data visualization. So they also
Okay.
know that
Yeah.
data, which is zeros and ones, can
Yeah.
be beautifully visualized in a way that is easy for someone to understand and absorb. Because if you just give
Mm.
numbers, right, and pure data, it's very
Mm.
difficult for someone to understand, number one, remember, number two. If you have it in a
Yes.
nice artistic way, right, in
Mm.
colors or in some kind of scatter or word clouds, and that's how
Yep.
how our human brains kind of remember, because we are looking at um, art. Actually,
Yeah.
we strive
Yeah.
for that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, and you mentioned about how, um, like all these symbols actually help with our memory. It really does, and there's more and more like growing body of research that shows that like we are wired for art. We are all of us, regardless of whether we're makers or beholders. And when we use visuals to understand data and understand the world around us,
Mm,
it what is actually really happening is when we're engaging with all these symbols and art, it rewires our neural pathways in our brain in a process called neuroplasticity. I'm sure you've heard of this before, right?
in a
I think
very
for
layman way.
yeah, and I love the reminder that that neuroplasticity is happening every time we, in response to change and new experiences
Mm,
and how we interact with arts. Yeah, so when we're experiencing neuroplasticity, it basically enhances the connectivity between different brain regions, and it's associated with improved cognitive functions like creativity, problem solving, emotional intelligence as well. Um, yeah, so this one is it's a reminder about how the
mm,
left brain and the right
yeah.
brain theory should be debunked, and we should stop looking at it as so separate, because we engage every part of our brains, and
Yes.
yeah, regardless of the task that um, we're
Yeah, you're at right.
yeah,
Yeah.
practicing. Yeah.
Has a person come up to you, like, like a generic man on the street, lah, not really a scientist nor an artist, and
Mm,
come up to you and
yeah.
say like, so what's the big deal? Like when you draw these things, what are you trying to convey to me
Oh,
as a layperson?
okay. Oh, it's just to celebrate the brain, the human brain, and to for me to understand it deeper, the structure and the functions deeper, and I try to communicate that in my works to get people interested. And like the Batman drawing that I did, I also tried to relate it to all the functions,
Mm,
when he's attacking his enemy, and so people know that, oh, that's the cerebellum at play, and what does the amygdala do. And I think it reminds us of the beauty of being human. Like it's just showing the brain, like revealing the inner workings of our brain, just I think just celebrates being human and being connected to ourselves and others.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like it's just so interesting because I think it's very eye-catching in terms of,
Thank you.
popular characters like Princess Leia. Like, what is she thinking? How does she make choices during,
Yeah.
her life as a rebel leader?
Yeah.
And do you actually go into the study of these characters when you start to depict what you think their brain might look like?
Um, as in, do I go deeper, as in
Yeah,
try to
yeah, yeah.
understand them?
Like
Oh
the
yes, I
psyche of
do.
Princess Leia, let's say, or
Yeah.
what is Spock really about?
Yeah, so it actually enhanced my appreciation for both, like the brain and also the character itself, because I'm not just appreciating them on the surface and like how we view them or how they're depicted in comics, or through George Lucas's eyes. Um, I'm trying to understand Princess Leia in a much deeper way. Like, what are her
Mm,
motivations?
yeah.
Like, how does she, her decision making, and all these things. And I could go down the rabbit hole just imagining these things, actually. And then I have to stop myself, like, you're getting too distracted, and, like, come back, and understand why you're doing this. But yeah, it does. Marry fantasy and reality, and I love this dance between the two.
Yeah. My brain also is start to open up because of you know, your visual interpretation. Because I never actually really connected in that sense. I mean,
Oh, I'm
yes, you do
glad.
character studies, right? But like
Yeah,
literary in a way,
yeah,
like literature studies, but you don't
mm,
really go into that another
yeah,
layer as to how the brain function actually impacts on this character and why the character
yeah.
is like this as well. So
I'm curious to know, do you have any characters that you wonder, like, how would they be like if we put them through an MRI? Um, and then I find it quite an interesting challenge to tackle different characters. So if you have any ideas,
I am
let me know.
particularly very intrigued always with villains.
Oh, me too. Villains are more
I mean, normal
exciting to.
people are just like us. I mean, we are normal, right? It's not kind
Yeah,
of like in the
yeah,
mid range of being
yeah,
normal in society,
yeah, yeah.
and that is like it won't really be very interesting unless you really want to know that person very deeply. But villains, why are they
I agree.
the way they are? It's not just their upbringing or their
Mm.
their social experiences. It could be something more. I have no
It's
idea.
I love that. I love that. I love that hypothesis. I feel like it is like a complex interaction between nature and nurture. So
Yeah,
so I feel every time I think about a villain, like I question myself, like, what experiences did this villain go through in their childhood,
yeah,
or
and some of them are, we can't say that children are all innocent, and some children are already bad. And it's like, how did that even happen? I mean, if you don't talk about religion, okay, the sin and all that kind of thing, like
yeah,
original sin. Let's not
yeah.
deal with that. But yeah, such people do exist, and the recent case that came out, which I'm going to go into this rabbit hole as well about studying this
Sure, let's
particular
let's do
villain.
it.
Um, it came up from it came on my feed, so I was going to
Yeah.
start on the rabbit hole, but I haven't started yet. And there was this British nurse called
Mm.
Lucy Letby, who had been found guilty recently of
Okay.
murdering
Wow.
babies,
Tell us more.
and she's a
Okay.
nurse.
Okay.
She's a nurse.
Hmm.
Like, why?
Hmm.
How did that ever even happen? uh
Okay.
it's really something
Wow.
it's so intriguing. I mean, it's a sad and horrible thing, but it's so intriguing as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we don't understand about ourselves, basically.
Hmm. So do you
Not
enjoy psychological thrillers?
Oh, I do, I
You
do.
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
psychological thrillers. Yeah, I love thrillers since I was young, and mysteries. I was an
Um,
Agatha Christie. I'm still a Agatha Christie fan.
yeah.
When you read such novels, so of course, when they are meant for popular consumption, some of these the motives, right, of these people are quite straightforward lah. You always come down to
Mm,
money, love, or can't remember the other one. You know,
mm, yeah.
usually money or love. But
Yeah.
I think there's more to that as well. Yeah,
There
so
is.
that
And I think, yeah, and I
particularly
think it's
intrigued me.
right. And yeah, and I think it's interesting to study them at a much deeper level, right? To see sometimes we find out that there's actually some neurobiological structure
Yeah,
that is different.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think more and more we find out that there is some form of impairment in certain regions of their brain that causes them to behave that way, and
yes,
they're already predisposed to it. And
yeah,
given that kind of environment that cultivates this like inappropriate behaviors, then it
mm,
will become even more yeah, pronounced.
yeah. But then
Yeah.
does that then the other question though, are we getting into the Minority Report era, whereby is this going to make neuroscience a bit more, I mean, does it become restrictive in a way? Is there a debate going on as to that it parks us in a certain box? The converse
Mm,
argument. Has that been posed to you
okay.
before?
Converse, so as in using neuroscience to kind of determine a
Yeah.
person's I think there's only so much, so it's not definitive. Like when we study brain activity or brain structures using neuroimaging, there are certain things that we like, there are patterns that we can observe, but it boils down to how we interpret it later. And we shouldn't use these to define someone. And I think
Yeah.
that's a yeah, that's something that is also, it's also considered unethical to do that. There's so much more. It only gives us, it doesn't necessarily confirm anything, but it does suggest certain things about a person.
Mm,
But even so, it is very useful knowledge to understand them
yeah.
at a neurobiological level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching right now and you have questions, do post, or you can uh, comment on any of my live streams, and maybe Quinn can get back to you later on as well. But please feel free to post your questions and we'll answer them as and when. Now my next question is, have you actually um, like studied how the brain actually reacts when we look at something beautiful?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
does it how does it react actually?
Okay. I'm interested to know how you respond
Yeah.
on yeah, at perhaps a superficial level. How do you feel when you see, like, what was the last beautiful artwork that you interacted with? Could you tell us more? And then probably I'll go a little bit deeper into what happens in your brain
Oh
when
my.
you're yeah.
Like the most wow one, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I I have to say that I was still very I found that, okay, the most memorable recently so far is still my trip in Amsterdam, right? To Van Gogh's museum. Because I just
You
love his work so
did.
much. Yeah.
Wow.
I still
Wow.
think I
Which of
still
his
think
work
that his
draws?
um I like the sunflowers. Mm,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like, because
Mm.
I love flowers, and like the vibrant colors that he used is kind of like so unique during that time. People tend to
Mm.
use pastels and muted colors, and his was just like bright and outrageously
Yeah.
standing out. And I love bright
Mm.
colors. Somebody in my previous
Mm.
job that I left after 7 weeks, somebody made a comment like, "You love colors, don't you?" Because I was wearing my crossbody fuchsia crossbody
Mm.
bag, and then I was wearing usually bright colors, and then most
Mm.
people were in black or gray or something more business like, right? Whereas I was just in this gaudy oranges and uh,
Mm.
bright blue and reds, and she's like, yeah. I told her, yes, I love colors. So probably that's how I kind of connect with Van Gogh's art as well.
Mm. Wow. So, what is probably happening at a neurobiological level is this activation of the reward pathways in your brain.
Mm,
So it releases dopamine and all those feel-good neurotransmitters, which are associated with pleasure and reward. And this leads to feelings of satisfaction and enjoyment. And it seems that you're also actively trying to keep these very aesthetically pleasing to surround
yeah.
yourself with aesthetically pleasing
Because
items
I find
around
that
you,
the
right?
world is full of color. Why restrict yourself to black and white, or
I
gray?
feel the same way. I feel the same way. So yeah, so when you're interacting with artwork like Van Gogh's paintings, like it sparks a dynamic interplay of neurotransmitters that triggers billions of changes that shape the way we feel, think, and behave. And this is all of this is being explored in an emerging science,
Mm,
which is a branch of neuroscience called
wow.
neuroaesthetics or neuroarts. It's very very new, and yeah, so it's a transdisciplinary study of
Mm.
how the brain
So what's the
responds to
difference
art,
between
beauty.
neuro arts and the neuroscience? Is it a subset or it's just a side?
It is a subset, so
Oh, okay.
it's a branch of neuroscience,
Ah,
and they examine how experiencing art measurably change the body, brain, and behavior. and
interesting.
and they take this knowledge to they translate it to specific practices that advance health and well-being. So now there's more
Yeah,
and more connection between arts and well-being, and I'm
yeah.
so excited to explore that deeper as well.
And you were mentioning to me that you did a lab example about how,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I think you have a
So in
slide on it.
school, yes, yes. So this was a lab assignment that I did several years ago when I was studying behavioral sciences. So the purpose was to familiarize ourselves with EEG. So
Mm.
my ex classmates and I use EEG to measure the brain activity evoked by listening to music. So we used
Oh,
consonant, which is pleasant music with slow tempo. We used instrumental ballad of the last waltz in C major, and so we hooked our participants up to the EEG, and then we studied their brain activity using this brain visualizer app. And so the data collected by this brainwave visualizer showed that listening to music was associated with an increase of theta brainwave, which is associated with deep relaxation, internal focus and meditation, and low alpha, which is wakeful relaxation, conscious awareness, and positive emotions. So as you can see, yeah, that's the like a screenshot of
yeah, the brainwaves,
what
right?
was being
Yeah.
observed. Yeah, and it was mostly yeah, it was very relaxing.
And it
So
was
it was a very
consistent.
small
It was a consistent
it,
for the samples that you have.
yeah, so I mean, it was a very small sample size, but it bolsters all the other research that is out there in the scientific literature that that sound waves, especially sound waves in C and G, can really soothe stress
Oh,
response and elicit relaxation. And now
I
more and
must
more sound
remember C and
practitioners,
G. Next time I stress with my
yes,
accounting job, I need to go and listen to something in C and G major.
yes, yes. Create a playlist of just C major. I found a few actually online, that there's a few people who created songs under C major, and now
Mm.
some practitioners are also using vibration and frequency to optimize creativity and cognitive performance. So, um, like yeah, I think there's really robust evidence that listening to music and
Mm.
interacting with arts
Mm.
really helps with our well-being and cognitive
Yeah.
growth.
So since you're mentioning the well-being aspect of this connection as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, how much of this, right, actually encourages like the healing of the brain? Let's say there's a brain trauma, somebody's in
Yeah.
coma or something like this. Um, has there been actual studies as well, and appreciating all kinds of creative arts, right? Like as you say, music is also one of them. Um, how
Mm.
does it actually, does it even heal the brain?
Hmm. Wow. Thank you for that question. It's it's something that I've been very obsessed about for a while, and there is quite like I said, robust evidence about the efficacy of using music, in particular, to help uh, uh, patients with Alzheimer's disease. So it helps with
Mm,
memory. There's also it helps with children,
mm, mm.
preschoolers, to help them actually improve their literacy as well, their numeracy, just by getting them to interact with music. And arts now more and more. Actually, honestly, I was a little bit skeptical about art therapy several years ago, but I'm becoming more and more open to it. Recently, as well, my partner and I have been attending like body mapping workshops, which marries art and well-being. And I think it was in conjunction with the Singapore Wellness Festival, and
Yeah, there was
it
a
was
lot of that
wonderful
going on.
because
Yeah, yeah, a lot of
yeah,
workshops on like pottery
yeah,
and drawing.
yeah. Yeah, and yeah, so I think generally I know that extraordinary statements like this, like art can heal and music can heal, requires extraordinary evidence, but the evidence is sound. Like now more and more doctors are prescribing museum visits to decrease anxiety and burnout and loneliness and to enhance cognitive skills. I don't know if it's like it's catching on in Singapore, but if you have a holistic GP, he'll probably be like, go to the museum, like yeah. And yeah, my GP, for instance, he really believes in mindfulness and interacting with the arts as well to to help. You don't have to always turn to
I
medication
think
or
one of the thing, because maybe okay, I'm just supposing this is my opinion or thought that came up when you mentioned about going to the museum, right? And basically, GP encouraging you to enjoy some visual art and creative endeavors in order to release stress. Maybe one of the reasons could be that when you're working or you're interacting with some people around you, there's always this particular need to either defend your opinion, like you're at a workspace, so you're defending something, right, that you're doing, or you're interacting with a difficult parent or something like this. Like there's always judgment, there's always like fighting. Not fighting is a normal word that I just use, like okay, fighting with people. Like
conflict.
there's always a struggle,
Yeah.
day to day life, that you take it as stress. So people's stress can either take
Mm,
more of this or less of this. But when you are
yeah.
looking at art, right, alone,
Yeah.
without anybody with you, let's say, and you look
Mm,
at this piece of art, let's say, and you form your own interpretation on what this art
yeah.
actually means to you, and whether this one doesn't talk to me, you get what I mean? This one I like,
Mm,
and nobody's going to judge you, because it is what it is to you, and it may not
yeah.
be even be an interpretation of what the artist
Yeah.
meant the art to be, but it's not
Yeah.
wrong either. And maybe that's why
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be a reason why it makes you less stressful, because you don't have to
Yeah.
defend yourself all the time.
Yeah, I love your whole thought process about this. Um, Lately, I've also proposed to my partner that if we're fighting and if words fail, let's just jam, like use music, like improvise. Let's just play music, like anyhow also can, as long as like we get it out there, or just look at an artwork. And I think it really does, biologically it does things to your brain and body that helps you feel connected to yourself. And it invites introspection as well. I feel like
Mm,
probably some of us are not aware of it, but when we look at artwork that we really enjoy, we're
yeah,
actually feeling more and more grounded
yeah.
and at ease
I
with
guess when
ourselves.
most of us are living in cities, is a very outward kind of expression that you're putting out to the world all the time, and not many
Yeah,
people have the chance, right, to actually go within. I
yeah.
feel, as you said, to be like self-aware and
Mm,
look look in yourself. Maybe
yeah,
that's why that's it's kind of healing in a way.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
interesting, interesting discussion on that. I'm also very curious as to like when the world around us is getting so digital, right?
mm,
Does that change the way do we perceive as well on, art as a
Mm.
whole?
Yeah.
Is it
Wow.
any different?
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
or
What
do
do
we
you
still
think?
like
Like,
have the need to go to the museum and be tactile? And there are some museum that have
yeah.
interactions, experiences,
Mm.
right? Like our art science museum sometimes have exhibits that encourages you to step on something
Yeah.
and create a sound. Um, yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I think technology has really expanded the tools and the mediums available to creators. So there's emergence of new art forms, and now there's more like interactive and immersive installations, and it really transports you to like imagined landscapes of the artist's perceived world, right? So
Mm.
there's this particular work that I saw earlier this year. Did you manage to catch this one? The mental colors of well-being. It was
No, I didn't.
um, Oh, but you went to see the what's that? The which sorry, this there's this other artist who also merges arts and sciences. I think it was happening in like concurrently with this
Mhm.
exhibition. But anyways, yeah, I stumbled upon this
Mm.
project by Nwando Ipitsi. She's basically an artist who created this immersive installation to kind of explore her very rare neurological condition called visual snow.
Oh,
And
what
she
is that?
worked the work visual snow. It actually causes some visual distortions. That's why her work is called distorted constellation. So when you enter this really dark space, there's like light projections and there's like lots of dots and it shows how the condition actually affects her vision. And the work was also developed by neuroscientists and technologists and artists. And I noticed also before entering the space that there was this QR code where they were gathering data through pre and post experience survey, and they said that it would
Ooh.
contribute to growing body of neuroscience research. So, so yeah, so I find it so interesting when artists work with neuroscientists to help us, deepen the knowledge on our knowledge of what is going on in our
Yeah.
minds, basically. And now also, yeah, there's a lot more collaboration and interactivity, and it does affect the way we experience art, like the GIF Fest that is happening.
Mm.
I think today is the last day,
Yes,
and
I went to
yeah.
see this G-Fest at National Design. I love this space. My friend
Oh,
and
how
I,
was
we
it
were just
like?
like, we sat on the
Yeah.
POF and then we were just like, and looked at it. And
Wow.
yeah, I found it so trippy and so intriguing. Yeah, I love this one. I think this is one of my
Nice.
favorite part of this year's night festival.
Wow. Yeah, so I managed to see the one at National
National
Museum, which is
Museum.
smaller
There was just
scale.
that was just flashed on the wall. This one was
Yeah,
like
that was
really in that, yeah, in that confined zone. And
yeah.
okay, and again, right, me with
Yeah.
me, all the colors.
Yeah, yeah, it looks so vibrant and
Yeah.
saturated colors. Um, yeah, so it really dissolves the boundary between art and the viewer, right? And this definitely is another example of like how
Mm.
the artwork is building neuroplasticity, like increasing synapses in a brain when you're just sitting there and just looking at it and being in awe and looking at the stunning works by the
Yeah,
different local and international artists. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I
Mm,
enjoy this kind of interactions. I say maybe my dopamine level just spike for a few minutes.
that's amazing. Mm,
That was a very interesting discussion on how our brain. I think you're going to get me to go into a rabbit hole as well. This is intriguing
let's do
me.
it.
Um,
Are you planning on seeing any exhibitions this weekend?
not particularly, but I know the pop toy con, the what pop mart.
Mm,
They're having a con
yeah.
9 or 10 September, and there's a lot of things happening that weekend. And SGCC is having a
Mm,
prelude as well. I'm not sure where I'm gonna end
yeah.
up being. I also don't know
Mm,
whether how my energy level is gonna be at that point.
pace
Yeah,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, I know, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
but I do
Mm,
find it uh it takes my mind out from work, so
yeah.
it helps me to
Mm,
not just think about, ones and zeros. So that really helps me in a way. And
Oh.
doing this as well, like talking to people
Yeah.
about different subject matters, actually helps my brain decompress as well
Yeah.
from normal day to day stress of work as everybody's daily grind can be.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
so
we are about
glad.
the tail end of our live stream.
Yeah.
Sorry again for the late start, everyone. Um, StreamYard has been having issues with Facebook recently. I'm not the only one facing that, and I had to reset a new channel for the both of us to
Yeah.
get this live stream going. But as we
Mm,
wrap up, also, I know you've done comic books covers for Image, King of Spies, and
mm,
you've been doing other things as well as managing your own business, and then
mm,
do creating these artworks either for commission or for other um, you know options, like people tell you to maybe for SGCC and you're creating one art print or something like this, but they've been doing this for so long. uh, for those newbies out there and the young ones, can you give them some tips on how to be successful as a creative? Like, how do you decide, that this is a way, a good path to go? Because there's so many
mm.
options even for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think for anyone who is in the creative, who's interested in going deeper into the creative field, be it as an independent artist or with a company, I think it's important to just be patient with yourself and expect that anything worthwhile will take a long time. So we need to lean into the discomfort of being terrible at something before we're actually good at it, and yeah. Because the myth of the overnight success is truly a myth that we just really need to put in deliberate
Mm,
practice, and inspiration also requires real and constant practical application, and yeah, inspiration comes when we do the work. Other than that, I think it's to also be open, approach every project with openness and curiosity, and ask yourself, what can I do better, what should I do more of, and what should I change
mm,
after every project or during or after every project.
mm.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the main things that people face when you're doing, especially artistic people, because you have very emotional connections to your work that you do, and you spend a lot of time on it, right? Like for me, I'm an accountant, so my job is my job. I have pride on it, but I don't really particularly have like emotional tie
Yeah.
to what I produce at work. But I know that's very different for most creative people. It's kind of like part of
Mm,
you, because you're actually projecting part of you to the world.
yeah. Yeah.
And I know probably people who've just graduated or they started work, they are
Yeah.
doing it in the business field, right? As part of a
Mm,
team, and um, inevitably there'll be criticisms, right? So
yeah.
if how any tips on how to deal with what we perceive as negative comments, and how do we
Ah,
get over these hurdles and not let us down? I guess if you're talking about brain as well, right? So like, how do we, change that kind of
yeah.
mindset? Yeah.
Hmm. Um, I always welcome feedback, whether it's negative or positive. I find that all feedback are actually valid, but sometimes we should also take some time to reflect whether the feedback is helpful or harmful, constructive or destructive. So that's something that we have to kind of cultivate ourselves. Everyone's going to have different opinions about your work, and yeah, to be open, everyone, like ask people even outside of your field, ask strangers, be open to criticism. I mean, all of us struggle with it. I myself also struggle. Like, I'll take time to be like, oh wow, like that was unexpected, and it's like
Yeah.
a punch in the gut, right?
Yeah.
But then yeah, but then over time I'll think about it, is this helpful for my growth? Does this align with my own intentions? Does this
Mm,
align with my values? Because sometimes people will give feedback without diving deeper into understanding why you do what you do,
mm,
right? So there is that constant dance of like, accepting feedback and also having that inner voice to understand um, if this is going to be helpful for you for your progress.
mm. Good tip. I think also and that's what people say, like growing a thicker skin, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I,
Mm.
I I always also have issues with criticism because
Yeah.
I'm quite, how should I say, perfectionist in a way, and I view that I view most times that I really do a good job. Why are you saying me? You know, this and this and this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really done the best that I can. So what are you
Yeah.
still not accepting of what I've produced, right? And
Yeah.
it's quite difficult for me being a perfectionist and
Perfectionist.
a kind of like
Yeah.
egoistical person as well to accept
Mm.
bad criticisms. But
Yeah.
it makes it easier, I guess, if they put it across in a very logical manner. I think I can accept that easily. Like
Yeah. If
telling
it's
me,
constructive,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
constructive,
I
not just
agree.
constructive. Maybe I don't agree even, but if they put it across,
Mm.
because that's how I perceive um, bad comments, uh,
Okay.
and allow me to give my comments back as well. But
Mm.
that's part and parcel of growing up, I guess, that you have to accept that not everyone will be, in agreement to you or see
Yeah.
your product as what you think it is.
Yeah.
you know,
And I feel like that's actually very relatable, Tina, because I would also consider myself like a recovering perfectionist as well. And sometimes
recovering.
when I receive yeah, uh, when I'm receiving negative feedback, I will be like, wow, is that the best you can do? Because I've said worse things to myself. And then I think to myself, yeah, but those were never helpful. So then now I think I'm able to filter what is useful. Like it doesn't have to be all bad, like we can take a little bit of
Yeah,
what people say. They don't have to be the villain all the time. They can be
yeah,
30% villain,
yeah.
in your journey. But like,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I think, yeah, as an older person, by the time you get a bit older, you also get a bit like, oh well, whatever, because life goes on.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I think younger people, once you kind of get to that stage, it's either the challenge of being too blasé about it, or
yeah,
rather, you know, that you don't care anymore, or you still take some constructive
yeah,
points to heart. But yeah,
yeah.
don't. I also want to tell the people out there, like, don't give up so easily.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
life isn't always what you think would be, basically, and we kind
Mm,
of have to navigate navigate
yeah.
different sections of our lives and hurdles. Um, I, I'm also
Mm,
putting this question across because I know that unlike people like me who are more in the business world, right? Um, creatives tend to be more I mean, there have been sad stories where people actually harm themselves due to these things, and I want to tell them also that they are not alone. So please reach out to
mm,
someone close. You know,
yeah.
uh, it's not just
Mm,
this is part. Life is much larger than this.
yeah.
This also how your brain needs to be rewired, I guess.
Yeah, and it's also important to find tools like different tools, coping
Mm.
tools. Like art is one way. Art is
Mm.
it may be healing for some people, it may be less healing, but
Yeah,
to
right.
accumulate different healthy tools that could help
Yeah.
you navigate through life's
Mm.
challenges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I should say that most people never think of art as healing lah. They thought of it just something like they see all the time, TV
yeah,
and all that. It's just like
yeah,
decompress, and they don't even actually, when they watch TV, especially some, they just watch. They don't like go in deeper, right?
yeah,
But yeah, as you're saying,
mm,
find a coping mechanism. It could even be like sports, something like this.
yeah.
Anything that helps the brain for your own mental
Mm,
well-being.
yes.
Yeah. Any upcoming events or appearances or anything new that we are looking forward to at your
Mm, we'll see about that. Upcoming events, I'm still going to be collaborating with my mom. We're currently on a short break because she's preparing for her cataract surgery. But once she's fully recovered, we're going to dive back into more collaborations. I'm open for commissions. In terms of events, no, but in the upcoming months and years, I'll be actually deep diving into art therapy in education.
Oh, okay.
I'm very interested. Yeah, so I'm very interested in designing evidence-based creative arts interventions and strategies to help promote social and emotional learning amongst children.
Interesting.
Because earlier this year I got the chance to work at an international preschool, and I realized how interesting it is. Like I've always been quite disconnected with children before
Mm, mm,
this,
mm,
but now
mm.
I feel like more and more because I was able to introduce arts and sciences to these like little kids, and I feel like there's a lot that we can develop in that
Start
area.
them
And
young.
yeah, start
Start
them
them
young, and
young.
yeah, and to not to introduce art and sciences together rather than
Yeah, and then
separate.
they
So
won't
I
have this
think,
right brain, left brain concept.
yeah, and
Fed into them.
yeah, and it would be easier. They wouldn't have to choose like, should I
Yeah,
go into arts or the
correct,
sciences? Do
correct.
both.
So why not both,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I think
yeah,
this is also new, right? Because as I say, we mentioned Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know whether during that era they did separate the two so much. I think it was all just because of
mhm,
curiosity,
yeah,
on how
yeah,
the human anatomy is, and
yeah,
how the wings work, and the machineries and
yeah,
gears and all this kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, why not do
mm,
both? Be like
yeah,
Leonardo.
yeah. It all starts with curiosity, right? And I
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I also sense that you're a very curious person, and after that, it's more of like, what tools do we have at our disposal to explore that deeper, right?
yeah, true.
Yeah,
Yes. So I think we have talked a lot today and discussed a lot today, and very interesting
yeah.
points. The danger is that I'm probably going into this rabbit hole as well to finding out more about this.
And I would totally entertain it as well because, yeah,
Thank you so much, Quinn. Could you hold on for a while I
sure,
say some things to the viewers who will be
sure.
watching us either later on or right now? I know
Mhm.
Mark is here, so I'm just gonna say hi, Mark, just to acknowledge your your greetings, and thanks for joining
Hello,
us
Mom.
again. If anybody has any questions, you can still have about 5 minutes to ask them. If not, then you can post them on my Facebook or YouTube or even on Twitter, and I might just send the question back to Quinn to answer. Right now, we're gonna just about wrap up, and I'm gonna come on board to tell you what's coming up next. So there is something planned for next week, Saturday, and it's gonna be a night live stream. The plan is that I'm going to be joined by two of my friends, and we will do a movie review on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. In fact, the premiere is happening right now, and I'm not able to attend because I scheduled for this live stream today. But anyway, I'll try to find a night where I can go watch it. And the live streams for this movie review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the latest animated movie, is gonna happen next Saturday at night. More details is gonna emerge soon. I'm trying to wrap up some of the details and the promo images, and please look out for them on my social media as always. And so thank you so much for those who are either looking or listening to us. And this live stream is going to be available post live, so you can watch that on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. So if you are not able to make it for this live stream, you can you can watch it later. You can rewind, forward, pause, and you can send the link on to your friends as well. I'm gonna get Quinn back on board again. Thank you, Quinn, so much for joining me for this very intriguing topic and
Thank
taking
you,
the time.
Tina. It was, yeah, thank you. It was a very enriching discussion. I really enjoy. Yeah, I love getting into your mind as well, and yeah,
Yeah. All right. So thanks for everyone joining me. Look out for the next live with Red Dot Diva. And if you have any special guests that you think would be best suited for a live stream in the future, drop me a note as well, and I'll try to get in touch with them. So See you again next time. Bye.
Bye.